really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
We are back on the Jumbo Set podcast. It is Tuesday, November 21st, dropping this thing a little bit early as you're listening to this. My name is Jake Louque. I'm joined on my screen, as always, by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz, looking real good in his new little studio setup he's got there with his little sign up there. It's my first time seeing this. You're telling me for the first time. I'm really enjoying it. How we doing, pal?
Doing well. It was a nice, relaxing Sunday. Ravens playing on Thursday, obviously. And I don't know. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. I don't know why. I feel like you've been gone for like eons. I don't know why. I feel like it's been a long time.
It does feel that way. It feels I feel a little alien sitting in the seat. I'm a little bit nervous. Yeah, man. It was a week-long work trip down to Mexico, San Luis Potosi. Great time, really good time. But it was it may be a little overscheduled from the work point of view. It was meetings, team building, and then right to the activity. Then dinner every single night. A lot of drinking was involved, and it was a great time. I wouldn't trade it. But difficulty getting back. Canceled flight on Friday. Had to stay an extra night. That was a little on the scary side when you're in a foreign country. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, no, we got back on Saturday night. Rested up then, and then you mentioned it, stress-free Sunday with watch a little Red Zone, get some stuff done around the house, do a little shopping, get some Christmas shopping out of the way, and yeah, man, it's good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling reinvigorated. I was expecting to feel kind of wiped after all this, but no, it's I feel a certain zest for life right now.
Good. I'm glad to hear. What was the best thing you ate? Best thing you drank while you were down there?
Best thing I ate. I mean, the tacos is a cliche answer, but they.
What did you like about the tacos, though?
They just do. I mean, the way they prepare the meat, like this is like, and obviously, like anyone listening probably knows this, but it's not just a ground beef off of the freezer aisle at whatever grocery store, and then a bunch of hard shells. It's prepared right in front of you on the grill there, and they kind of like do the meat a little bit differently, and then the condiments are a little bit different. They're a lot better, obviously, very fresh, all kind of prepped right there. All that was very good. There was just a lot of good stuff. The bone marrow on the dinner at my last night, where you kind of scrape it off the bone onto a little tortilla, was great. And then drink of choice actually came on the last night at some of my Mexican coworkers introduced me to something called the cantarito, which comes out of this little like pottery situation, one of those types of cups. Very interesting. It's like they throw some tequila in there, some limes, a couple different fruits of some kind, and then they do the salted rim, but they also throw some chili powder on there too. One of the more interesting drinks I've had. I was absolutely addicted to them. I probably had like 4 or 5, and this was while the Ravens were playing the Bengals. So let's just say I was in a good mood because I checked my phone here and there, and I noticed that they were running away with it. So yeah, it was a good trip overall, and man, it was an experience, though. Like I said, I was kind of wiped on Saturday night, but feeling refreshed and ready to get back after it. How's it been going around here in these parts? How are the other clowns doing?
They're doing all right. They're doing okay. Brian had his whole episode from a couple weeks ago when he went to the Bud Light touchdown tent, and then we were able to have that tailgate with Jack Settleman, did the Snapback Sports tailgate. He brought like a whole squad of TikTokers that were apparently have a huge page doing football trivia at tailgates around the country as well. And they asked me the hardest question possible. Jack told them to get me on to do their TikTok. And I went with one of our listeners who came in that I've met up with a couple times now. And they asked, I was walking over. I was like, oh, what are you guys going to give me? Like Super Bowl MVP wide receivers? They were like, no, but that's a good one. Cause I have been asked that at a trivia before. That's a fun one. So they asked me, what are the top 6 duos, non-quarterback, so running back and or wide receiver and or tight end duos in full point PPR over the last 10 years? And some of the ones that I immediately started out with, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. No.
That was the obvious one I would have
Wasn't on there. There were so many that I couldn't think of. I ended up getting through like 4 of them. eventually they started like whispering, like the guy started trying to whisper like Oklahoma. It's like, what? I don't know. He was trying to whisper DeMarco Murray, basically. I was like, I don't know.
It was him and Dez, I guess.
It was him and Dez. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas was one of them. There were quite a few interesting pairs on there. And Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams was one of them, which is like you just don't think of that. You don't think, oh, last 10 years. Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore weren't one of them. It was quite a labor intensive dig there. It took us 5.5 minutes, I think, to finish the list. And from what I gather, they only post people who get them all right. So I don't think I'll be on there. But that was a tough one, and that got the juices flowing. But other than that, it was a really fun time. Jack had a ton of booze, ton of burgers, and got to meet a bunch of listeners who are, I guess, listening to this. So it was a super nice time. Shout out to everybody who came. And Jack threw a real nice shindig. It was a real easygoing time. Everybody had a nice time, it seemed, and got to interact with a ton of people. Gowie, Engraven, Ramey, all those guys were there. Brian and Taylor.
Yeah, I think you mean Paul Wall, by the way. Ramey, who I have not seen much. I've seen him here and there throughout he doesn't show his face a ton. I'm sure he has his reasons for that. It's fine, but I saw that picture of him. That is Paul Wall in his early 20s, if I've ever seen
Paulith Walleth.
Yeah.
The people's champ. Light up like a lamp, because now I'm back with the camp. So yeah, it was a really good time. Went into the bank, and it was electric. I mean, primetime home game. Lamar told everybody to be in their seats at 7:45. The offense came out, and it was pretty relentless. I have a video on my phone. It was, I think I tweeted it. I can't recall, but it was like God testing me. It was my row, my section. I'm not joking. Like almost every single person in the entire stadium was standing up except for the rows in front of me. It was almost cinematic considering what I've talked about this year. And then my own mother, who's probably listening to this at some point, was like, sit down in front. I was like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Got to stand up for this one.
She's got to be better than that. She's got to know what's going on.
She said she doesn't come to the games to stand. I said, Mom, stop it. You stop that. So I was like, all right. But then the bank was electric. It was relentless. The franchise was texting me that Joe Burrow on TV looked like his eyes were as wide as saucers. She said he looked scared. And that game, I mean,
she's been getting into the takes and the analysis game a little bit more lately. I'm liking that a lot. And I know she's listening to me right now. So let's keep that going.
She just gave the rock and roll dog, the wolf, yeah. So that was all good and dandy. And then the Ravens opened the game up, score a touchdown. The Bengals drive a little bit, kick a field goal, got aided by some penalties. It was a real ref show at certain points of that game. And the Ravens just didn't relent and kept making plays, kept rattling Joe Burrow. And I do think ultimately it doesn't matter. We can play Captain Hindsight. The Ravens have had to play a lot of games with their backup quarterback. I do think it would have been a closer game with
definitely.
Joe Burrow in. I think it probably would have been something along the lines of like a 27-23 Ravens win, something like that, 30-24, somewhere in that department. Real ref show, though, for sure. And Big Boy came on, which was a lot of fun. Big Boy started with, I think newer music, the first like 2 songs. And I was like, I'm going to go get a beer if this is how this is going to go. And then So Fresh and So Clean came on and it started bumping Miss Jackson, a bunch of stuff. So that ended up being pretty fun. And obviously Joe Burrow gets hurt there, which kind of no one in the stadium realized, I feel like, for a little while. I'm sure on TV, everybody was freaking out, but I started getting a bunch of texts like, oh my God, Burrow's hurt. And I didn't even really realize till Browning came in the game. And Burrow, clearly that whole situation going on, Dave Portnoy with a Better Call Saul little video of him saying he's going to file a class action lawsuit against the Bengals and the NFL for not disclosing Joe Burrow's injury.
Which, by the way,
I'm going to rewatch that play. Clowney smacked him and that wrist hit the ground hard.
My mom actually broke her wrist once when she got bucked from a horse and she like put it down. That was the first thing I thought of to like brace herself.
And Burrow, you saw it was like that exact thing. The worst thing you can do, Joey, you got to let your head hit. He's got to go to falling school with Tua in the offseason.
The
throwing hand can never bend back on the ground like that, Joey. And I think he had the choice of doing that. I think he did that. Like, I think he could have gotten away with not. And to his credit, throws a touchdown after that still, and then winces, comes off the field. And then from there, I mean, hey, Jake Browning made a couple plays, but Ravens just kind of controlled that thing. Zay Flowers screen touchdown that got called back into a Nelson Aguilar tipped ball race to the house was pure cinema of Ball Don't Lie. And that was a lot of fun. And
shout out to Jerome Simpson. He flipped into the end zone. Take that, Bengals fans.
Yep, that was pretty sweet. And Keaton Mitchell, I thought, looked pretty nice in this game. Gus Edwards racks up a couple touchdowns. And again, just kind of when you look back, like Lamar Jackson played a really nice game. I posted on the Exit 52 Instagram and TikTok and Twitter the throw that he made to Zay Flowers that was sneakily almost a touchdown. That was an unbelievable throw. But Lamar kind of throttled the Bengals again and just doesn't have these big box score days that thrust him into the MVP. And it's like Gus Edwards has the third most rushing touchdowns in a single season in franchise history. Have any of those been long? I don't know.
It's been a total. I
think they've all been inside like the 10. I don't think I don't even know if he's had one longer than 10 yards.
And what have we asked for? I mean, you get down to the goal line, use the guy. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest gripes of the Roman. I broke down all the stats. We hated that. We always hated that. It doesn't have to be that hard. Gus Bus is a great short yardage back. So 4 away from Jamal Lewis's single season record.
And a lot of runway in front of him here to go and get it. I mean, the way at this rate, I mean, he's scoring hat tricks like every other week, I feel like. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me. And I don't know. It's certainly drawing the ire of some of the more Lamar vociferous people on Twitter, which I love. They want that stat padding for the MVP campaign. I totally get it. But Gus has been through a lot of shit the last couple of years. Let's get the guy his flowers too. Come on.
Yeah, we've wanted this Gussie breakout year for a long time. He's had his injury last year, just wasn't quite right and just wasn't getting the usage. So got to give Monken credit in that department as well. Like having a better run game in the goal to go area, being able to go turn those into touchdowns. They've gotten the damn thing rolling. And it feels like Monken has his little version of his Kenny McIntosh and some of the backs he's had at Georgia with Keaton Mitchell now to have the big and the small. And Keaton Mitchell, going back through it, hitting some really nice, tiny little gaps and picking the right gaps and squeezing his smaller frame through. And that's a freaking dynamic 1-2 punch. So you see Keaton Mitchell starting to get lined up outside in the slot. I think he had 10 snaps in the pass game and 9 of them were routes. So they want to throw him the football. From what I recall, should be a pretty soft-handed guy during his time at ECU. I don't know how much we saw of him catching the ball in the preseason or anything, but someone that's going to factor into the pass game. Obviously, the Mark Andrews injury, the Logan Wilson, the hip drop, all major buzzwords.
What's your take? I was just on with Kevin. For anyone listening to this now, you can listen to me on Locked On Ravens well, no, that doesn't come out till tomorrow, actually. But what's your thoughts on that? I'm kind of like, why do we have to litigate this?
So my original thoughts were that, I just don't want more legislation of tackling. Guys can't go high, guys can't go low. Now you're in the middle too slow. Then Sam Schwartzstein, who does the Prime Vision for Amazon Prime, does the analytics. If you do the alternate Thursday night feed where you can kind of see.
That was a guy on PMT a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, he was on Pardon My Take a couple weeks ago. Good dude. He blocked for Andrew Luck at Stanford. He was an offensive lineman. His claim to fame, he was the highest rated offensive lineman in one of the NCAA football games at one point.
Shout out to Greg.
Exactly. Greg Roman was his coach. So that was actually the first thing he asked. Can he call me? He wanted to get some thoughts on the Ravens team, things he would like to highlight for the Prime Vision broadcast when he was doing their analytics spiels they go into on that. And the first thing he asked me to sidebar into the hip drop was, why did Ravens fans hate Greg Roman so much? And why do they love Todd Monken so much? I feel like I'm watching the same thing plus some screens. And was like, probably, we got into a whole conversation. I was like, it's, there's certain things, play sequencing, getting the line a little quicker, whatever. There's a couple tweaks.
A little quicker and a little more consistent.
It's a little more operational than it is scheme. It's a little different operationally. That's a whole conversation. But so he was also I don't know the right word. I would have to look it up on his Twitter probably. I think he was the head of rules for the XFL at one point. And he has a couple big things. Kickoffs. He has this huge successful thing that they rolled out that reduced injuries. The hip drop tackle, he kind of schooled me on. And he said that it is something that is new in the last 10 years, to which I responded, was like, okay, well, it's new as a result. I would guess it's a result of a lot of the newer rules about tackling have maybe resulted in that. But he was like, yeah, sure. But it's something that's new. It hasn't always been part of the game. It's effectively a horse collar. It does have a high rate of injury. The NFL has been tracking it for at least 5 years because of it. And he said rugby banned it. He said rugby had to ban it. So there's precedent in that and all of those things. And when he said that it's new in the last 10 years, I kind of like did the Zach Galifianakis hangover idiot savant and was just like, wow, it is new, isn't it? I couldn't really recall that being previous. Then I saw another video shared where this is the thing, like Ray Lewis used to sling guys and he would hip drop his own weight while keeping their body weight away from his, kind of like
it feels to me a little bit like a reaction to the way that the sport has spread out a little bit more, where like you've just got to be able to move quicker and like you just have to learn how to arm tackle a little bit. Like it's just got to be a part of it. But
you're always supposed to tackle with your arms. I mean, that's always supposed to be a part of it. And I do think that it probably will lead to controversial calls and things like that, but it does have a higher rate of injury. I do hate adding things to the game. It is effectively, in the way he broke it down, he's like, it is a horse collar. The hip drop is only the quote unquote hip drop if it's onto someone's legs. If you are doing the same thing you do by a horse collar, basically taking their legs out at the same time, which leads to all the blown knees and stuff like that. So it's tough. And I'm sure, Ravens fans like, oh, ban it, Logan Wilson, this. Look, it's currently legal. So it's not a dirty thing to do, but has a high rate of injury. So it's tough. I hate adding rules to the sport in any way. I'm a hardcore football libertarian, I would guess is the best way to put it, in terms of adding more. I don't know. It feels like it's going to be inevitable. They're going to do it. I don't know. It's the next high rate of injury. I honestly don't know how, like we see it happen in the pocket and no one flips out about it. Like defenders kind of drop their weight so that the quarterback can't get out. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be tough, but some of them in the open field and things, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He made me feel kind of dumb because I was like, oh yeah, it's true. It is very new, but I just feel like it's already over. The name for it being the hip drop is so catchy and kitschy. And
when you get hip, like in context with like injury, like that's just a buzzword that's going to like, it's a little.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough. At the same time, it's like, how are you expected to take out Olympic level athletes that don't want to go down?
If you have an angle to a certain point where Mark Andrews is running full steam ahead and you're a little bit behind, or you're a little bit behind on your angle, like that's probably how I would have tackled him if I were Logan Wilson.
It's like a wrestling move. It's using your weight and your leverage to make sure that you can get somebody down. That's when you get somebody from behind in wrestling, you kind of drop your weight so that you're the lower man and you maintain that leverage. So
for all the whining that happened after Roquan Smith's performance in Cincinnati last year, that just put a bad taste in my mouth with Bengals fans. I don't want to go down that road. Let's take the high road here. Let's be better.
And it's not dirty because it's not illegal to do. There's no rule about it. There's no penalty. It just happens. And some people were taking exception to him with the Lamar. I don't know. To me, it didn't really look like he twisted his ankle or anything. And that one was maybe a little bit less extreme of an example. And he just rocked OBJ. It was an awesome play by him. He chased him down from like 40 yards from behind and just freaking rocked him. It was a high hit, but not a high hit that should have been penalized. So when I was going back and watching tape, I mean, he made a bunch of plays, man. He was taking on linemen. I thought he played a pretty solid game. So yeah, whatever. No Ravens said anything about it either. And I think that Ravens would be quick to defend their guys, especially a Mark Andrews or a Lamar. I think they would be quick to, if there was any feeling of disdain of that being dirty, defend that. And none of them have said a word about it.
Let me tell you, Bengals fans are about to have a chip on their shoulder starting to develop as their season starts to circle the drain here. The Joe Burrow comeback season, all that shit, it's coming. So I don't want to give them any ammunition here.
And that's what we kind of said, though. I mean, now that I guess to go a little broader in the context, it's Thanksgiving, and that's usually the proverbial, what's going on in the NFL.
Yeah.
So 5-5 for the Bengals. The Browns go and beat the Steelers to move to 7-3 and a half game back. The Steelers fall to 6-4. And that's what we said earlier. It was like the Bengals started out so poorly. They've done that so many times, but they had divisional losses as a part of that. And it's harder to go win a division, to go make the playoffs when you have conference and divisional losses. They're a double whammy when you lose like that. So, Joe Burrow injury aside, they were not in a great spot. And I just thought it was interesting that they felt so confident and maintain that air of confidence despite what their record was, their record in division, things like that. So tough scene for Cincinnati. You hate to see Joe Burrow go down. I like good football. I like seeing teams at their best, but unfortunately, it's a 100% injury sport. And Joe Burrow goes down. He's going to miss a significant portion of time for the second time. And what is this, his fifth year? Is this fourth year?
20, 21, 22. It's his fourth year.
Yeah, fourth year. So 2 out of 4 seasons, he's going to miss for the most part. I mean, he played in a good bit of these games. Just a weird year. He had the whole thing in training camp. Jamar Chase and football karma, football gods, whatever. I think Jamar Chase said it best. Like, I don't think Burrow should have started the season if he had any kind of injury. Not that the wrist is related to a leg, but I don't know. Just didn't ever help them to have him pushing and stretching and pushing it to the limit. And I think, maybe that's a little bit of football karma of not doing the right thing.
Yeah, their mistake was rolling with Jake Browning as a backup to begin with, and then that kind of puts him behind the 8 ball when you're going through training camp, and you have to say, okay, well, we pretty much have to start Joe. Like, we're fucked if he misses any time, and eventually it does kind of come to bite you in the rear end there. And yeah, like,
hey, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. What was the backup? Phil Simms backup for the Giants.
Yeah, Ostetler.
Yeah, but backups have won Super Bowls. So then there's also the Derek Carr Raiders that have who's the backup? Matt McGloin, maybe.
Oh yeah, he started that playoff game in Houston.
Yeah,
Brock.
So backup quarterback, man, it's important. And on the other foot, Tyler Huntley, Pro Bowl quarterback.
Or no, that was Connor Cook. Yeah, shot at Michigan State legend.
Connor Cook, that's who it was. Yes, Matt McGloin was the backup at that point, but Huntley is a nice backup. It's where you feel good about. I'm shocked that Jacoby Brissett wasn't traded somewhere. What is going on with it? He's on the Commanders. They trade Chase Young and Montez Sweat. No, it's hard to say that they had offers because you can't. I never heard anything about it. It was shocking that the Steelers, Browns, who else is missed out? Kirk Cousins, like they go get Dobbs, whatever. So many teams need a quarterback. The Giants, maybe. I don't know. Just very surprising.
The Browns. That's a big miss. I know they were waiting for Deshaun to come back, and now it's bad.
They know Jacoby. How do they not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, he won games for them. Like, that's a
looked good. He was good. He was a solid starter for them.
Yeah, he's solid. I mean, he reminds me of Foles a little bit in the way that he plays, actually. So it could have been an interesting comparison. But yeah, I mean, good on the Vikings for making that move. I mean, they might not make the playoffs, but they could, and they're looking pretty fun right now with the Pastronaut there. So good on them.
Yeah, that was a super fun game last night too. It was really nice to be able to see that full schedule. We'll get to have that happen again in 2 weeks when the Ravens have a bye. So a couple nice football Sundays that we'll have as people that cover the Ravens and obviously as Ravens fans. So those were all interesting, very interesting. I guess to maybe transition Ravens centric is the big question I would say on the Ravens right now is what happens when Mark Andrews goes down and misses time. We do have John Harbaugh insinuating that Andrews' injury was not as bad as they first expected, that it was a cleaner, I guess, fracture would be I'm making an assumption there. He said it was cleaner than they originally thought, which makes me think
his fibula, right?
I believe it was a fractured fibula. He's going to have a tightrope procedure from what I read, which is what Tony Pollard had.
Right.
So Andrews goes down. What happens? And this is actually interesting because this is what I was talking about with Sam Schwartzstein on the phone this past week too, is that I know the Ravens value tight ends because they view it as a market inefficiency, especially in contract size and then draft like hit and success rate. They think that later round players have a higher hit rate at tight end than they do at receiver. So what do? They draft Charlie Kohler. They draft Isaiah Likely. They've got Vokalek that they were talking about today as well, someone that got a lot of buzz through the preseason. And no, none of those guys are Mark Andrews. But when Mark Andrews went down last year, Isaiah Likely balled the hell out. He had huge games against the Saints and the Bucks, and there was another one, I believe. And I think he had he had a 100-yard game, a 70-yard game, scored a couple of touchdowns. So Isaiah Likely is a capable guy. We haven't seen him flash the way we fully want to, but I also feel like in the last month or so, we've started to see the football find its way to him, and he's making guys miss and tough to bring down and doing those things. Kohler to me should have gone on the Nick Boyle PED train and missed a few games and gotten a lot bigger and turned into a little bit more man
Just call it a PED red shirt. Just say, hey, man, we're just going to shoot you up with this stuff and you're going to get caught. And that's okay. Just do it. And then that'll be your red shirt year.
I mean, something. I'm not, people might rip me for that, but hey, I think that would have helped him a lot. And bigger guy, soft hands, can run the seam a little bit. I just need to see these guys. I think that there might be some ancillary benefits. Benefits isn't the right word.
So I had some thoughts on this.
I think that it will foster growth in other areas from the quarterback to the wide receiver group.
It's just what I was going to say. Is there a little bit of a Ewing theory here? Because it felt like we got that in that Buccaneers game where he goes down. They were kind of spamming him a little bit. He goes down. Then all of a sudden they start to spread it out. They go a little bit more east-west. They make some stuff happen with Duvernay on the jet sweeps. Like, are we getting a little bit more of that?
I think there can be some, I don't know the right word, some sway in the other direction. And I think it's going to increase the target share for guys like Bateman and Flowers. And of course, Odell Beckham, Nelson Aguilar, everybody's going to feed a little bit more. Mark Andrews is a massive target share. And not only is it a massive target share, but it's a massive target share in the red zone. It's a massive target share on third down. And I don't know. I just think it can have some positive impacts when Mark Andrews isn't on the field. I think you're a little bit less predictable in your pass game in some ways. And Mark Andrews is Lamar Jackson's binky. He's his little blankie. He's his safety blankie. They've been playing together for so long. And hey, it does suck having that guy go down. Mahomes doesn't want Kelsey to go down. And I wouldn't say Jackson and Andrews are too far off from that. But to me, the blocking game, Mark Andrews is a freaking good, consistent blocker. And you can trust him to get the job done that needs to be done, something he's grown so much at. And I think when you go look at Josh Oliver, who became a more hefty man in Baltimore, moved bodies, turned into he went from like a fast basketball style, running the seam, ran a 4.6 into like a WWE tight end that was let's go foaming at the mouth after driving bodies into the earth. That's what I want to see from a Likely and from a Kohler. That's where you can make money. With the direction the NFL is headed, with the cyclical nature of the game, with two tight end sets becoming more and more prevalent, Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler have a massive opportunity to get in there, block their asses off, stay on the sleds, ask Pat Ricard, be around Joe D, be around all those guys, and go block their arses off and make money, man. That you have to be able to block to get on the field as a tight end. You have to. You have to be able to. If you want to be a 3-down back, you got to be able to pick up and pass pro. If you want to be a 3-down tight end, you got to be able to get in line on first and second down or in short yardage and go move bodies. So go do it. You have a bye week coming up. You have a long week this week. You're going to go play a Rams team that doesn't really have a lot of talent aside from a couple marquee players. A lot of opportunity for those guys. The Chargers defense stinks. So go gain some confidence. Go be confident. Rip a shot before the game, rip a little Jaeger or something like a Jonathan Papelbon was talking about, and go move some bodies. I think this is their time to shine. And the Ravens having an insurance policy of two really productive college tight ends that got that year behind Mark Andrews, have been alongside Pat Ricard. It sucks. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler have a chance to go do damage and make it be a minimal drop-off in a lot of areas.
Knowing Papelbon, I'm surprised he wasn't like railing Adderall. That's him.
I think that's pretty much what he said he was doing. I can't remember what show he was on, but he said he would do uppers and rip 2 to 3 shots of Jaeger. And he compared it to when you play a round of golf, you want to get into a flow state after a couple of beers. But if you keep drinking too much on the 18th hole, you're trashed and you can't hit your irons, which I was like, all right. Yeah. I mean,
1 beer per 9 and a couple of Zins mixed in there. That's my a cigarette or 2. That, not to get too deep into my X's and O's process here, but that's kind of how I handle it out
If you want to get into the flow state, you need 1 to 3 beers.
I've also said that 2 beers is it can cure pretty much anything.
It's true. Very true. So Mark Andrews goes down with that, and
has medicinal properties, but continue.
It does have some medicinal properties. 1 whiskey. 1 barbiturate. So Mark Andrews goes down. The Ravens should get Marlon Humphrey back. They should get Ronnie Stanley back. They might get David Ajabo back at some point. I don't know. There's not really a spot. I don't feel like there's not a spot for Ajabo until someone else goes down.
Yeah, you've got Tyus Bowser kind of weirdly still lingering. What's going on there? We don't really know. Might have to text Glenn about that at some point. Maybe
I don't know, man. That's just a silently, preposterously weird situation. So now you're looking down this stretch. The Ravens have the third highest rushing DVOA in NFL history through 11 games. They are quietly beating the crap out of teams. I guess really aside, the Browns had a nice day against the Ravens run game, I'd say, in that win the Browns had, that 33-31 game, whatever it was. And I don't know. Like Lamar Jackson, I think could have like 900 rushing yards right now, but he just is now a $250 million man. So he falls down, which is what people wanted him to do. He's doing the opposite of what people have wanted Josh Allen to do. He is going down. He is sliding. We saw him take a very awkward slide in this game, but if he wasn't doing that and just happened to still be pushing like he was in 2020, 2019, I think he's averaging like 9 yards a carry.
It feels a little more restrained in a lot of ways. It just feels a little more chaotic.
I like that they're doing it. My point of saying this is just that that's their DVOA. That's how efficient they are. And they could be murdering teams if Lamar was really pushing to try to do that still, I feel like.
Yeah, no. And I think you're right on that. It's a good thing. And we talked about how more measured they look and more just kind of just more put together. Just like they just have their shit together on offense. Like we mentioned, they're getting to the line. It's, a lot less procedural penalties, a lot less bullshit. It's just a lot more calm.
Lamar's checking at the line a lot. You're seeing a lot of pre-snap checks, calls, all kinds of stuff.
And I think
they also had 3 home games in a row where it's quiet to kind of really sort that stuff out. And then they play the Chargers is not a road game.
Yeah, and it's I thought it was.
It's not in Baltimore, but it won't be loud.
Yeah, I see what you're doing there. Well, you got the one fan, the delightful lady. Yeah, well, you got Bolt Boltman and the lady who is maybe also a Vikings fan. I don't really know what's going on there, but yeah, that's obviously we'll get into that in the preview, but that's gonna be an interesting one. The Chargers teetering a little bit. That Brandon Staley press conference, I watched pretty much the whole thing. That was I actually quite like Brandon Staley. I think he's, been put in a bit of a tough situation. Obviously hasn't been great, but man, he kind of lost his cool there in a way that we haven't seen at all, which was kind of the reason I really liked him. He felt like a measured guy in a tough situation there with Dean Spanos and all the bullshit that the Chargers consistently seem to be going through. But he seems not long for this league as a head coach.
Fully agree there. He might be one where we look back and say, how the hell did he end up as an NFL head coach at one point? And hey, it doesn't mean his career's over. Just you see a lot of guys, see a Todd Bowles, see a Dan Quinn, guys that had some ups, had some downs, end up being a better coordinator, and there's nothing wrong with that.
He could come back.
Be a really smart guy to be an NFL coordinator.
He could come back and join us in the blogging ranks.
Oh yeah, he could get back in there. That'd be a little bit tougher though. That'd be a little tougher.
He was with was it PFF? I feel like Slowick was doing that too. There have been a couple of these guys.
I can't remember where Staley was. I don't think it was PFF. He was somewhere.
I think it was with like Sean Clement, wherever he was at the time.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So at this point in the season, 8-3, man, the Ravens sitting atop the AFC. They're right. If the Chiefs win tonight, whatever, they're still atop. They're right there with the Chiefs, neck and neck, one way or the other. And a key stretch of games here where all 6 teams following the Chargers, the next, 6 games, all would be in the playoffs. So the playoffs started today. That does include the Steelers, who are just a joke of a team, in my opinion. And, man, that 49ers game on Christmas is going to be a banger. Christmas night, too. That's going to be a banger. I wish I was going to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick. That's in Santa Clara, right? Not here. So yeah, that'll be a fun one. Not only one primetime game here. I was surprised by that. It's a little unfortunate. I didn't get to go to the one, but man, going to the primetime games and then coming back home and having to record after those can be a little bit of a tough scene at times. So yeah, man, we'll have those to break down from the comfort of our own homes, which is nice. But yeah, man, this is kind of like the nut cutting time, as we like to say. You get the backloaded schedule. It's going to be tough against some of these teams. I think Dolphins is going to be there's going to be some 1,000-yard stare PTSD from the 2022 game with this fan base, certainly. And Steelers, man, that you really hate to see the chickens coming home to roost on that one a little bit. That's tough.
Unbelievable. Just unbelievable outliers that the Steelers can be at times, and then their expectations, and then what the national media starts to pick up on them. And Kenny Pickett has the it factor while his stats aren't pretty. It's like
tough year for the it factor.
Tough year for the it factor. Such a mega tough year for the it factor. So this Ravens team, man, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious. I can't wait. This game's going to kick off here, the Chiefs-Eagles, and I can't wait to thoroughly watch every single snap of this game and try and gauge the Ravens against those two teams that are the class of the NFL that did play in the Super Bowl, that likely, I would heavily think, are both in their conference championships, if not Super Bowl again this year. So can't wait to watch that one. Can't wait to watch some of these other games coming up on this schedule. The Detroit Lions are 8-2 now. That looks like an insane win for the Ravens. Made Dan Campbell cry, and then now he's in the locker room screaming bloody murder after they barely beat the Bears.
Yeah, I think Dan Campbell is crying right now. I don't think it takes too much. Either happy tears or, sad tears, love of football tears.
Rage tears even can come out.
That's like, you walk out into just oil-rich land and you just stick a pickaxe in the ground and it just starts flying out. That's Dan Campbell getting him to cry. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Most certainly. And at this point, you think about the Ravens scheme. I mean, Mike McDonald, the toughest anyone's played Mike McDonald in a while is that Deshaun Watson and Jerome Ford kind of broke some tackles and sacks, and David Njoku. Like the science is sound.
One thing I wanted to ask you about that game, I mentioned the calmness and the measuredness. That kind of went away for that fourth quarter. Does that have you a little concerned, especially with Andrews going out? Do you think that the whole hair on fire thing has a chance to rear its head here in the next couple of weeks?
I think that the Ravens panicked because Morgan Moses was out and Ronnie Stanley was out. And suddenly you have Falele and McCary. And hey, McCary's a fine player. When have we seen Lamar Jackson not look good? When his guys are missing on his offensive line. I don't think he trusted those guys. I don't think they were calling plays that trusted those guys at all, which is probably the right decision. Eyes were dropping. They were not prepared for that scenario. Myles Garrett, that was a little bit of a play not to lose situation for sure, and hoping to get a stop. They were close on a couple plays, but just couldn't run the ball. And Browns defense is fucking insane. Myles Garrett is insane right now, what he's doing. And the Browns were dialing up some pressures. Jim Schultz was dialing up some pressures and things. Couldn't run the ball. They were basically saying, we will happily let you take a 3-5 step drop, like a 5-step drop back and beat us over top. They were loading the box. They were fitting gaps with no hesitation. They were saying, please throw the ball over our heads against press, beat our guys downfield, please, and you will win. And I don't think Lamar trusted his backup offensive lineman to do that. And I don't think that that's crazy. I don't think it's crazy of me to say that. And I don't think it's crazy for Lamar to feel that way. Not that I'm reading his mind, but if you can hit him and his guys are out, he kind of rattles. And that's most every quarterback that exists. How do you beat how do you hit Tom Brady? Or how do you beat Tom Brady? You hit him. How do you beat Peyton Manning? You hit him. That was always the saying. Hit the quarterback, move him off the spot, make him feel nervous, and you'll beat him. So those things happen, and the panic is a part of that. And I think there are other things too. But offensively, the Browns are just that good defensively. And I just don't think he trusted protection to hold up. Everything was him bailing and buying times, cutting the field in half, and then having to make a tough throw. They almost got it. There was a Nelson Aguilar. He booted and tried to throw, and Nelson Aguilar had a step right past the first down marker, couldn't get there. So I think they were just also tired. That's why I was impressed with this Bengals win, very much so. They still haven't had their bye. They went to London. Then they went to Arizona. Then they went to Baltimore, and they played how many games in how many days? What was that? 3 games in technically like 11 days? Something like that. So that adds up. So now they get this long week. For them to be 8-3 into a long week, into a bye, and for them to be playing a pretty freaking mediocre Chargers team with the one that's wedged in there, and then a pretty freaking mediocre Rams team on the other side of it. you can't ask yourself to be in better position, especially considering some of those games they dropped, the Colts, the Steelers. I'll say that the Browns beat them.
Yeah.
The Browns took that game from them. The Ravens handed the game to their other 2 losses. So can't be in much better shape. Mark Andrews stinks as a loss, but everybody loses somebody. Joey Bosa, the Ravens won't see him. He just sprained his foot and will be put on IR. So I hear you definitely. And I'm curious, it does have some tones of that 2019. Well, what happens when they're down big? I don't think they're going to get down big on anyone. I just don't. I think they're too efficient and their defense is forces you to go the long way. That's why that 49ers game will be curious. Maybe the 49ers can put up a 14, 17-point lead. Maybe depending on who's healthy and who's not. So that's why that one's super interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely. That will be interesting to see. And I mean, as far as like that whole conversation, like they've had games where they've been in shootouts and they've had to throw it and they've done well. That Bengals game in week 2 was one of them. You can look at a couple others, even that Cardinals game a little bit. They were giving them a little bit of a game there, and they had to pass their way through that one to a certain extent. You had Lamar throwing the off-platform touchdown to Andrews there, which was awesome, doing something off schedule with that. So yeah, it's just like they're much better set up to weather this injury than they would have been in years past. I made the point with Kevin, if this were to have happened at this time last year, and it kind of did to an extent, you're talking about Deshaun Jackson, Sammy Watkins, James Prochet, like Devin Duvernay, like,
D-Rob was their number 1 guy in that
Marcus,
scenario.
Yeah, like he was the number 1 guy. They didn't have
Devin Duvernay was on IR at that point too.
Right, yeah, and they didn't have a wide receiver touchdown for however many weeks in a row. Then Demarcus Robinson obviously breaks it in that Falcons game, and it just felt like the finding the oasis there out in the desert. But yeah, they're really well set up for it this year, and it's credit to DaCosta for the dart throw with Aguilar. Credit to him for opening up the credit card for once for Odell Beckham. I mean, like these guys Odell Beckham's coming on at the exact right time. And we pretty much called this, and he pretty much confirmed it in his media availability where he said, look, they came to me and they said, like, look, man, we need you down the stretch. Like, we're not going to put you back into this week 2 Bengals game. We can't have you getting hurt long-term. Let's just ramp this thing up. Let's get you back into fighting shape. And it looks like he is rounding into that at the right time.
And that is the biggest low-key PR against what people were saying and thinking and what that survey said and all of those things. That was Odell saying they kept me from myself, and that's what you're always supposed to do as a training staff, and that's your job as a coaching staff. Keep your guys healthy. They'll always want to play. You have to know when it's in their best interest or not. And so that's a very sneaky little
shout out to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Shout out.
We'll see how that goes.
He's not coming back in. He's not coming back in.
I cannot wait until he does. God, if that happens, that would be the greatest fucking thing. I need them to keep winning games, because if that happens, that would be the greatest thing in the world. Like Aaron Rodgers, I have my thoughts on the guy. The guy's a fucking content machine. And like if you were to come back on an Achilles less than 3 months or like 3 months, whatever, after it happened, that would be one of the most insane stories of all time.
It would be great. It would definitely be great for the content machine, most certainly. And just he's number 2 to Marlon, I would say, on your list of guys that you're interested and entertained by. And you famously aren't necessarily an Aaron Rodgers fan, but you're very intrigued by him.
I was for a very long time. Like I was kind of one of the early people on he's the most talented quarterback of all time. Not to give myself too much credit. I don't think that's like a super hot take at this point, but yeah, I was. And then, the family stuff comes out. He starts dipping into the psychedelics a little bit, maybe the brain chemistry, who knows what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, as far as it's good to have storylines, it's good to have villains sometimes. And he's one of those guys. He's kind of like the NFL's Bryson a little bit to me. And golf is missing Bryson right now.
I agree with that. I like that. I like that comparison a little bit. He's the anti-hero in many ways. So with that, I mean, I guess we can kind of rattle off. We forgot about some seggies. We just had a nice little catch up. We haven't done this. And you and I tried to do, I think you and I, especially over the last two-ish years, have really tried to save a lot of stuff for the pod.
Big time. You want to do a quick ad read before then?
Yeah, let's do a quick ad read.
Okay, we got Black Eyed Susan Spices up on deck. You already know you can order their award-winning hot sauces and dry rub at blackeyedspices.com and get 10% off using code EXIT52. But up until now, you can only get their stuff in person at the Seasoned Olive in Fells Point and the Wide Source in Hamden. They're still there, but they're available elsewhere as well now at your Ace Hardware locations in Alexandria, Virginia, Logan Ace, Tenleytown Ace, Frager's Ace, and Petworth Ace for our DC people, Old Tacoma Ace and Silver Spring Hardware in the burbs of DC. And last but not least, for all our Baltimore people, they're available at the Canton Ace, Waverly Ace, and Fed Hill Ace Hardware on Light Street, right here in Baltimore. So
that's where I got my drill so that I could mount my sign.
Oh, there you go. You Spenny tools. I like to hear that. I've been, getting into my my tool journey a little bit as well, which I feel like I need to follow up with Brian on that. He's the real kind of hardware man in this group. But yeah, there's no longer an excuse for boring food. Get some award-winning Black Eyed Susan in your life from Black Eyed Susan Spice Company in any way you can. So you can do that on their website with the promo code EXIT52 for 10% off, or you could support local businesses by buying in person at those Ace Hardware locations. So get them while they're hot, and they're always hot, so you can always get them.
Love it. With that, we can hop on into the Smooth AF Smooth Play of the Week, presented by smoothafproducts.com. Check out their line of hours shaving, grooming, and cleansing products, like their lavender CBD shaving lotion, an awesome stocking stuffer, especially because it's a little wonky with the name and it has an F*CK on it. So for that crazy uncle that you have or whatever you have, go ahead and get him a little beard oil, beard lotion, shaving cream, shaving lotion. And it's nice and it feels good and it's good for your skin and conditions you and all that good stuff. So I know you didn't get a ton of time in this one you probably reviewed all the highlights and stuff, but I'll go ahead and start us out. The Smooth AF Smooth Play of the Week to me was one that was called back. And whether it should have been called back or not, up for debate. But regardless, seeing Zay Flowers jettison through splitting two defenders and take off on, I believe, a 75, 80-yard touchdown, somewhere right in that department, was just sick to see. And we've talked so many times on this podcast about guys not being able to generate explosive plays after the catch, the lack of yak. An interesting conversation Sam Schwartzstein and I got into was, he said, do the Ravens get the ball to receivers on the move very often? Because it seems like a lot of times they're stationary, they're static. And I was like, yeah, it's a lot of hitches, a lot of turnaround, it's a lot of coming back to the ball. And I think that does maybe have some things to do with quarterback, whatever. But at the end of the day, they got the football in Zay Flowers' hands, and he was able to go do something after the catch. And even smoother was just Keaton Mitchell, just casually, almost like Tyreek Hill used to do, running up by his teammates just to show how fast he was, but ends up laying a super useful block. Keaton Mitchell just flew right up the sideline.
I mean, that was
able to go wedged. He pointed traffic, directed traffic, said, you go here, I'll block for you. And he did it, which helped get him into the end zone. So to me, that was smooth AF.
Shout out to our guy TC with the fighter pilot little graphic that he made there. That was Rooster and Hangman, going one by one. I'm good, Rooster. I'm very good. So yeah, that was that certainly had to be right at the top there. And what a disgrace by these referees. Let's keep it in our pants here. What do we do? I know they had the ball don't lie, and that's fine, but
he had a handful of jersey, but it wasn't a hold. It wasn't it didn't prevent the defender from being able to move. It wasn't advantageous. It was inside of his shoulders, and he let right go. As soon as the extension happened, he let go. It wasn't prohibitive of any movement, restrictive of any movement for the defenders. So that's why you're supposed to call holding. And it was just a total ref show in that game at many points.
Yeah, it was. Mine would have to be you mentioned it. I haven't even gotten a chance to watch the full game yet, but I was all over the highlights right away. And I saw this highlight on Twitter pretty much as it happened. I was probably like 3 cantaditos deep. Lamar Jackson working his way to the left. Rashad Bateman putting his foot on the ground, working his way back into the end zone. Lamar just making a sick throw kind of on the move there, going left. Really hard to make that throw. Like it's difficult to tell when you're sitting on your couch just how difficult a throw like that is to make. So shout out to Rashad Bateman. Had a tough season thus far, but he's really come on the last couple of weeks, getting in the end zone. You can tell his boys were hyped for him. He seems to really be fitting into this room nicely. After a tough offseason where it just felt like the fit was maybe a little bit weird, what's going on with the locker room fit and all that kind of stuff. It just seems like he's assimilating at the exact right time. A lot of kind of parallels with Odell Beckham, 2 guys at different points in their career, paralleling each other and feeding off each other. So that's mine.
Very much so, and just the kind of persona that they have as well. And I feel like the fact that, and Jack told us, he's like, Odell is not like an extroverted person in the way that he speaks and stuff, but he is an extroverted like presence and things like that. And I feel like Rashad Bateman fits into that too. For the Johnny Crab Cake, let's go ahead and move on. We can get out of here, watch some Sunday Night Football. We do want to shout out and say, though, before we move on to the Johnny Crab Cake, that we will be having a mega fun happy hour. If you're listening to this, it will be at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're having Thanksgiving. We're going to do a happy hour. We're going to have a little bit of trivia that I'm putting together, some holiday-themed trivia that I'm hoping will be fun. I think I'll do an okay job. I've got it all corralled. And
I'm excited for this. This is your Jeff D. Lowe moment.
Yes, very much so. So we'll have some prizes. It'll be a live stream. You'll be able to catch it on the Exit 52 YouTube page. If you're listening, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. Like everything that we have on there. That's the easiest way to support us. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure to sign up for it. We'll have something getting going in the next couple hours if you're listening to this in all likelihood. So keep an eye out for that. There should be some graphics. Jake and I have tweeted it out. So with that, the Johnny Crab Cake of the week to me was none other than one formerly known as Jason Odafe-Oweh, who generated a season high. Pardon me, he actually had 7 pressures twice this season. 7 pressures, had a sack, and just generally whooped Orlando Brown's ass all night. He put Orlando Brown through the ringer. His ability to transition between movement and reflex and understanding that hand fighting, we've talked about it. It's there. It's good. It's strong. John Harbaugh today made a comment saying that he's just scratching the surface of what he can do as a pass rusher, and I buy into that 1,000%. And hey, guess what? Me buying into something John Harbaugh says. Who would have thought? I never do that. But Odafe-Oweh whooped Orlando Brown. The spins are there. The rips are there. The chops are there. And he also has his eyes up, and he sees where the quarterback is, and he understands depth. And he's starting to get an understanding, I think, of situations dictating quarterback drop backs, drop depth, where the quarterback is going to be. On the first play of the game, he cleanly beat Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown reached, grabbed his collar, and yanked him back, which turned Odafe-Oweh and wasn't able to go sack Joe Burrow, then hunted Joe Burrow down and made a play. So he played like a real Johnny Cake and a Johnny Crab Cake. I actually just watched that episode of The Sopranos the other night. I've been spitting through my I guess now annual wintertime Sopranos.
I gotta get on that. I haven't watched it again yet this year.
I'm now enjoying just leaving it on, but not going back and keeping track of the episodes. I'm just like basically like
it's just
watch 2, fall asleep, skip 3, watch 2, fall asleep, skip 3, watch 2, something like that. So that's been fun. But Odafe-Oweh was a big bad man who beat up on the giant rabbit's foot carrying former Baltimore Raven Orlando Brown. And that was sick to see, especially considering the poetic justice of him wanting out, the Ravens trading him, getting the Kansas City Chiefs pick, and drafting Odafe-Oweh, and then seeing him go whoop up on the Bengals in that important divisional game.
Absolutely. Mine is a little bit more off the field. It's a little more philosophical. It's a little, not to crowbar another Sopranos reference in here, but I'm getting some Phil Leotardo vibes from this defense right now. These guys are in fuck you mode a little bit. And you've got a certain Mr. Jermaine Pratt, who seems to just love talking on Twitter. I don't know what's going on with that, but he's a good player. He's a good player in his own right. I think he forced the fumble on Huntley last year in the playoffs. So good on you for that, Jermaine Pratt.
He's a good player. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of talking on Twitter. Says something to the effect of the only reason Lamar looked good in that game is because Joe Burrow went out, which maybe a little bit of a suspect line of logic there. We can maybe double click on that and come up with some logistical reasons why that doesn't make sense. But you've got Roquan Smith going on the vault. Shout out to our guy, Big Shot Bob, and Sarah Ellison saying, we could have said that last year when Lamar wasn't out there. It's about, are you in the excuse making business or are you in the result making business? And I'm more so in the result making business. Sounds like an excuse for me. I guess that makes him feel better. You've got Patrick Queen clapping back on Twitter a little bit. These guys are just in Phil Leotardo, just Richie Aprile mode. They're just not taking shit from anyone. They're here to they're here to set up a small crew, and just start becoming real earners. It feels like. So that's my Johnny Crab Cake of the week. It's just the general vibe around this defense, specifically germane to funny enough, Jermaine Pratt's comments.
I would liken that Roquan Smith line to Phil Leotardo saying, my estimation of John Sacramone as a man just plummeted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and listen, like Johnny Sack, another great character too. We just got to start a Sopranos podcast at some point. Got to get into that lifestyle.
It truly gets better it's unbelievable how much better it gets. You think that it's such a complex show from things that you hear. So the first time you watch it, you just kind of don't take it at surface level and understand how funny it is. And like, you try to like keep track of too much instead of just letting it soak in. And that's what stands out the more I rewatch it, just how funny and simple it is. And there's all these complex things and theories.
It's different phases of your life. Like when you first watch it, I first watched it when I was like 18 or 19. It's like, oh, sick. This is like mafia and like hits and all that stuff. And then you get a little bit older, you get to like the family dynamics, and like that starts to connect with you a little bit more. And like some of the mental health stuff, like it's very, very layered. And whenever you come back to it, if you've given it a couple of years, it's always like, oh, you pick up on something new.
100%. So those were our Johnny Crab Cakes of the week. And that about does it. We usually do Mega Culpa, but I don't know. I feel like we predicted a win when we did the preview of the Bengals game. And
my Mega Culpa is trusting United Airlines.
There you go. Never do that. Never do that. Not very United of you. United.
Yeah, my estimation of United Airlines as an airline just plummeted.
Well, there we go. So with that, guess we can get on out of here. We got some Monday Night Football to watch, and we got a doozy. So coming up on that tight hour, glad to get back on the horse with you. Feels good. We can hit our stride. Got some bye weeks coming up. I'm hoping to have Brad Spielberger from PFF come on to talk some upcoming free agents, Justin Matabike, Pat Queen, things like that. I've reached out to him, so hopefully we can have him on. He already agreed, so I think he should be coming on at some point in that bye week. But we'll have a game preview. Like I said, we also have Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this, Tuesday, November 21st. Join us, 8 p.m. Eastern. Happy hour.
Going to be a
trivia,
good
prizes, all that good stuff.
Cool. That all we got?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening on this Tuesday, coming out a little bit early here so we could get it your way, as I'm out on PTO on Wednesday, getting ready to enjoy some of this holiday goodness, Thanksgiving, things of that nature. We'll obviously talk to you again tomorrow night. Like he said, on the YouTube page, go subscribe to it, throw us a like, throw us a comment on each and every video. Help that algorithm out, get the things churning, get that engagement going. We appreciate it very much. You can follow us on social media as well at Exit 52 Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Jake Louque. That is Louque. Spencer is at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle. Brian at Barstool Banks. Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. Eric at EDITTI 22. Thank you guys again very much, and we will talk to you again tonight.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir. Right on cue. Hey, let me.